After a bit of a break, severe weather returns to the forecast, but how long will that threat hang around? And a warm start to your work week in the east gives way to cooler temperatures as we get toward midweek. How long will that last? We'll take a look at all of that, plus snow is in the forecast, windy conditions return to much of the country, and we have a geomagnetic storm inbound with aurora sightings possible. So don't go anywhere, a brand new, action-packed, exciting edition of Cold Rain's Weather World starts right now! Happy Monday to you folks. Jason Pritchard here with you on another wonderful day that the Lord has made. I'm so happy that you are joining me for this special work week kickoff edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, the fastest growing new weather show on the internet. It's the only show, in fact, that leaves you feeling better, more confident, and smarter than when you joined. So now, to that end, we're going to start, as we always do, with our Weather IQ question. We're going to test your Weather IQ. I hope you had a good weekend and that your work week is off to a good start. You may be watching this in the afternoon or the evening, but anyways, I hope you have had or are having a nice Monday. Now, our question for today is about winds, okay? So here is the question. What is the name for the global wind belt near the equator with low pressure and calm winds? A, the doldrums, B, the westerlies, C, the horse latitudes, D, the trade winds. Okay, those are your choices. Now, if you know the answer, go ahead and type it in the comment section below the description. If you do not know it, then just simply hang on till the end of the show and we'll show you the answer. We've got a lot to get into today, folks. We're going to get right into it. I want to thank you again for joining. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. We're at 295 subscribers, almost to 300. Next big goal is 500. So tell friends and family about the show if you enjoy it. Give us a like, hit the little thumbs up button down below, and leave a comment, a prayer request. If there's something I can pray over for you, I want to do that. And leave me a comment or a suggestion about the show if you have anything to say there. So happy to take any of that under advisement. But thanks again for participating. It helps YouTube push this out to more people. But we're going to start here. As I said, we give you all the weather here at Cold Rain's Weather World, not just sunshine and clouds, okay? So we show you everything. And we're going to start with our volcanic hazards map just to give you an idea of what's going on with the Ring of Fire. We've got IE Seamount out here in the Mariana Islands under an advisory, and then we've got Great Sitkinawatch and Kilauea as well. These are all active volcanoes, and then Spur up here continuing to be at an advisory level, could explode and send some ash over toward Anchorage at some point. Everything else up and down the east or the west coast is in the green, so we're good there. Looking at earthquakes, we did have a significant earthquake, but it really didn't result in any damage or anything significant around in terms of the effects. But it was a 6.5 south of the Fiji Islands, had another 5.5 that did cause some damage in Myanmar, and they had that big quake not too long ago. Nothing else going on there. Solar activity, we had a couple of filaments erupt over the weekend and send a couple of coronal mass ejections toward Earth. Those are going to hit and cause a geomagnetic storm as we get into tomorrow, with potentially tomorrow night and Wednesday with auroras. These are the aurora forecasts for today, so not much doing outside of northern Canada. But as we get into Wednesday night, maybe Tuesday night, Wednesday night, we could start to see some of the aurora visibility drop farther to the south as these geomagnetic storms hit. Now this is a G2 geomagnetic storm on a scale of 5. Here's your scale here. You can kind of see that here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but minor all the way up to G5 extreme, and that's when we would start to see those auroras farther south, like we've seen maybe in the past year or so, down into Alabama and Georgia and places like that in the Carolinas. So, but we're looking at a G2 in the next couple of days. So that's what's going on in terms of your non-weather stuff. Getting into the more geological and space stuff. So getting into the actual weather arena, looking at our hazards map, we don't have a lot going on here. This is very inactive. Just some windy conditions over the plains where you've got wind advisories, red flag warnings. Very dry. It's going to be warm. Don't burn anything in these areas. Adverse fire conditions could take hold here. Same thing is going to happen up here in parts of the East Coast tomorrow, where a cold front is going to bring windy conditions in. It's going to be dry as well, so may see some adverse fire behavior as we get into the east tomorrow. And then, the only other thing I wanted to show you here, way up here in northern Michigan and far, far eastern Minnesota, we've got winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up for snow, and some snow could fall to the tune of 2 to 8, maybe 10 inches in spots, just depending on where you are, and that's going to happen over the course of the next 24 hours or so. So be aware of what's going on up there. Still got some river flooding here where we saw all of that rain in the last week to 10 days. Satellite imagery. Storm system out here in the North Pacific bringing some clouds up into Canada. Some of those clouds will spill in eventually to the northwest coast. Subtropical jet is active with energy coming in, cloud cover, the desert southwest through the heartland area of the country. Another storm system up here is spinning around and it's going to be moving into Canada. Trailing cold front is going to bring a threat for showers and thunderstorms and severe weather into the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic later today. And this other storm system just kind of winding up and spinning off the east coast, northeast up here. That's going to move out, but it's going to be partly cloudy to mostly sunny for much of the southeast and the Intermountain West as well. Looking at our radar imagery, we don't see a lot going on, just some showers along the Iowa Missouri border, a little bit of showers and snow shower activity moving up from Minot to Bismarck. Not much happening on the west coast. This system that's spinning up here is delivering snow to Minnesota. It's going to deliver some snow up here into the UP of Michigan as well. A little bit of rain approaching Ithaca down through Scranton, Allentown, over into northern parts of Delaware as the morning goes on. That'll all continue to shift over, I think, in the Wilmington area, and all that'll shift over to the northeast and kind of die out as the day goes on. So not looking for a whole lot out there. Looking at the actual surface map, so here's that low pressure we talked about. So general snow activity, you can see these little bands of heavier snow up here in Minnesota and the UP of Michigan. Then we get down here to where this cold front is. It sort of sags all the way back into Texas. Out ahead of that, we're going to see general shower and thunderstorm activity, a couple showers up here in New England. But our severe weather looks to be mainly from Kentucky over toward the DC area. And that's where we're going to see potentially wind, hail, and a couple of tornadoes are not out of the question this afternoon. We'll take a look at that threat a little bit more in detail in a minute. Tomorrow, that front pushes off to the east, and we're going to see that cold front swing on through the southeast and knock temperatures down. We're going to be in the 80s today. Temperatures are going to fall tomorrow behind that cold front. Wind's going to pick up behind it. It's going to leave us with some snow showers up here in the Great Lakes region and northern sections of New England. A little bit of rain up in the north as well. A few rain showers. Not much doing down south where it's dry. The cold front is moisture starved, and that's pretty much what we're going to see with that. Then we have a couple more systems working into the west coast, going to bring some snow and rain into the Intermountain West, into the Rockies, Bighorns, Bitterroots, and prepare for some potential rain and snow showers. Not going to be a blizzard, not going to be a washout. Just know that you're going to have clouds and showers and unsettled weather around. Then we're going to see storms generally form in the plains, but not really anything too severe. We're not expecting that, and continued rain and snow showers from time to time up here in northern New England and into the Maine area. And your wind gusts for the next few days, we're looking at mostly here in the plains where we saw those red flag warnings and wind advisories up. So we're going to see winds over the next couple of days, really in these green areas, 30 to as much as maybe 40 miles per hour in spots. You get into the yellow, you start to see these are the mountain peaks, of course, where the wind's going to be a little higher. You're going to see winds gusting generally into the 40s, maybe 50s in spots up here in the lakes as well. So batten down the hatches if you're in the green over the next couple of days. You're going to see that. This is through Wednesday early afternoon. Temperature-wise over the next 3 days, looking at highs, the warm temperatures, Intermountain West, 60s and 70s along in the San Joaquin Valley, going to heat up nicely in the 80s, desert Southwest, 80s and 90s, 80s and 90s across much of the South and Mid-South and Southeast as we get through the afternoon today. 40s, 50s, 60s along in through the Northeast, Northern Plains, you're in the 40s and 50s and 60s back from South Dakota into Kansas this is Nebraska. This is not Kansas, Iowa, and over into Wyoming, highs in the 50s, and then chilly along the border where you're in the 30s. Going to be chilling out later on with snow. Overnight lows tonight, cold, still dominating. It is still winter, and it still feels like winter, at least in some areas, with temperatures not getting or getting below freezing anywhere where you see the kind of the dark blue line here and above from that. So Rocky Mountains, Northern Plains into the Great Lakes, temperatures in the 20s and 30s in New England, and then 40s, 50s, and 60s, of course, warmer as you get south And so looking at high temperatures next couple of days, really, really warm out west, 70s all the way up to the Canadian border, 80s and 90s as you get down to the southern border, and then cold air hanging on in the lakes. That's our cold spot for the day tomorrow. 50s, and again, not so warm in the southeast. That cold front is pushing through. Temperatures will be falling actually as you get through the afternoon hours. And then tomorrow night into Wednesday morning could have some freezing concerns for parts of the upper mid-south and mid-Atlantic, the the northwest sections maybe in of those areas. So up into West Virginia probably, and then up into New England, and 40s and 50s everywhere else. And last but not least, our temperatures as we get into Wednesday, warming back up in the center part of the country, 80s poking all the way up into South Dakota. Still cool across the Northeast, cool across the South, so below normal out here. But that's going to be changing as we get into the end of the week. But that's your 3-day temperature forecast. Just wanted to show you all that so you could understand what the temperature profiles look like and the weather over the next 3 days. That's always good to know so you can kind of plan for any activities that you have. We're going to take a look here at the severe weather threat for this afternoon, but before we do that, I want to take a look back at this day in weather history, and this takes us all the way back to 1935, April the 14th, 1935. That was a Sunday, and it was during the Dust Bowl. You've all heard of the Dust Bowl. Well, on this particular day, an event within the Dust Bowl was called the Black Sunday Dust Storm. It was a catastrophic dust storm that swept across the Great Plains. A massive wall of dust over 1,000 miles wide engulfed parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, turning daylight into darkness. The storm displaced an estimated 300 million tons of topsoil. It destroyed homes, and it led to 20 deaths at least. We don't know for sure. There could have been more due to dust pneumonia and suffocation. The whole entire event highlighted the devastating impact of unsustainable agricultural practices combined with severe drought conditions. And as a side little fun fact, did you know dust from the Sahara Desert can travel all the way across the Atlantic and make it to the United States and South America? I didn't know if you knew that or not, but we've got satellite imagery that will show that happening from time to time as it gets translated over in the winds. And we're going to talk more about winds as we wrap up our show. But that is an interesting this day in weather history. I thought I would share that with you. So with the severe threat today, we're looking at mainly Kentucky over into close to DC, encompassing all of West Virginia, which is what I showed you earlier. So we've got a tornado threat that extends back into Kentucky, encompasses the middle part of West Virginia, 5% risk of tornado. Wind is the bigger threat, and hail as well with 15% chance. And again, this is not 15% chance of you seeing a tornado. It's 15% chance of or in this case, 15% chance of, I think I've clicked on hail here, hail within 25 miles of a point, which is not insignificant. And so we have a slight risk, or a level 2 risk, for the severe weather this afternoon. So what's going on with this? We look here, the jet stream is, we're actually looking at the 500 millibar wind. So this is wind energy up in the mid levels of the atmosphere, and you can see the highest colors represent the strongest winds, or the darkest colors represent the strongest winds is probably the best way to say that. And if we put this on in through the afternoon, you can see, if we start here this morning and then we move this on through the afternoon, you can see that wind deepening, those colors deepening as it moves into West Virginia and Ohio and Kentucky. And then we've got some blacks and whites showing up here. That's pretty strong. That's, we're getting in the order of about 100 knots. When we start to see these brown colors, we're looking at 85 to 90 to 95 knots. And so this is a strong jet stream in the mid levels, and it's providing energy. And out ahead of these jet streaks, is what this is called, you get lift. And so lift lifts the atmosphere aloft, and it causes convergence at the surface, or actually causes lift at the surface. And so air parcels go up. And if they're moist and unstable, you get really rapid rise in air currents, and that leads to showers and, of course, thunderstorms. And so that's what's happening here at the upper level. At the lower level, we're looking at moisture returning out of the Gulf, and not a strong warm sector. We're not seeing dew points in the 70s or anything like that, which is why we only have a slight risk. But we have enough instability, and I'll roll this forward. This is our instability profile. So we have enough instability coming in. This is, about 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon. We're seeing instability build up here, and these green colors are plenty of instability, enough if you have some lift to create thunderstorms. And so the yellow colors are more instability, and then everything kind of squashes off as that cold front moves through later and starts to push all of it out. Nocturnal cooling takes over, and so you'll get some drying behind the front. You also get nocturnal cooling, so instability lessens. Now, looking at the tornado threat specifically, you see these swaths here. These are swaths of this area here in West Virginia. Here, I'll draw a circle around it so you can see it better. Notice this area. I'm going to roll this back. So watch that pink area as I roll this back. So you see how the bright little streaks show up. Those are streaks. Those are helicity streaks. Basically, what it's showing you in a nutshell is where thunderstorms are moving with rotation. So rotating thunderstorms and their paths. Don't take this as gospel truth. If you're in sitting here in central West Virginia and you see this dark swath roll over your house on the model doesn't know exactly where thunderstorms are going to develop. So don't take this as gospel truth, but just understand that anywhere in this area from eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, southern Ohio, West Virginia, maybe even sneaking into Virginia here, western Virginia, you could see some rotating thunderstorms. And rotating thunderstorms don't necessarily mean tornadoes, but the rotation adds additional dynamic to the thunderstorm. It allows for production of larger hail oftentimes, and stronger winds, and potentially tornadoes if the low-level environment is right. And as we get into later into the evening, that's when the tornado threat would be increasing, as the low-level winds would turn a little bit more favorably. So just pay attention if you're in that circle, particularly the inner parts of that circle. Stay weather aware this afternoon. That's the main theme. Have multiple ways to get weather alerts and have an action plan in case a tornado warning is issued for your area. And as we go on ahead through the rest of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday, not looking at any sort of severe threat whatsoever. Severe threat, again, returns back in here mostly around Iowa as we get into Thursday, and then on Friday as well. We've got a long kind of corridor from Texas stretching all the way up into the Great Lakes. Another system is moving out of the plains, and it's going to interact with moisture and warmth out here. We saw the temperature maps earlier, so we've got more warmth and moisture here to work with. And so an active pattern is starting to set back up, and nothing else on D7 and D8. That would be Saturday and Sunday. But they're watching that, and I'm watching that too. I think there's a good possibility that at least one of those days we'll see something pop up as we get closer toward the weekend. So active pattern is returning. Looking at the lightning flash density, this is showing where thunderstorms should exist as we get into Thursday. This is Thursday morning, and we get into Thursday, start to get into the afternoon. You can see thunderstorms breaking out here, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, and then that will die out as the heating of the day wanes, and then we get more thunderstorms as we get into Friday evening, and you see this line of thunderstorms back from Texas all the way to the Great Lakes. That's what the SPC is seeing too. And this is one model I'm showing you, but other models kind of agree with this. And that general pattern sort of tends to stay in place as we get on out toward the end of the model run. This is overnight, Saturday night, but we're going to see activity continue to push from the west in our jet stream and flow east, and we're going to see an active thunderstorm pattern return back to the plains, and could see some rather high rain amounts take shape over the Mid-South and the Ohio Valley, Mid-Mississippi River Valley, and some of the communities that saw a lot of rain before. We could start to see more rain fall over the same areas. Don't want to jump the gun on that yet, but that is a possibility, so stay aware of that. Jet stream Thursday, this is Wednesday evening. Put this on motion. You can see really here nicely a distinct northern jet and southern jet. So you got kind of this split flow pattern that's working through like that. You see, that's what's going on. Now watch how this translates out. Once we get into Thursday and Friday, we've got this big trough out in the west, so we start to cool off out here. We start to see warm air return out of the south. Ridge sets up. We've got some jet streaks here that we're looking at. They're going to help provide lift, and we're going to see lift in those regions. That pattern generally remains in place, a little bit of a strengthening jet stream pattern here as we get on in toward the weekend, Saturday into Sunday. And so we may end up seeing, here's another storm system kind of moving and sharpening up in the southern branch of the jet stream. So we may see some contribution of lift out ahead of that as well. And troughing up in the northeast, so we might see a cool back of temperatures there, warm across the south, so we're going to see that continue. Ridging under these ridges, you don't typically get a lot of rain, so the southern and eastern sections down here may continue to stay dry as the bulk of the activity runs in through the plains, and that pattern sort of persists. So we may see days of active weather through the plains, through the mid-Mississippi River Valley, and on up into the Great Lakes. Snowfall forecast, looking, several inches of snow are going to fall up here in the northern New England areas into the northern Great Lakes. Of course, in the Rockies, we're still seeing cold enough conditions for snow out there. So that's what snowfall looks like over the next few days. Active pattern, this is the surface map of the, we look at the jet stream before, this is kind of the surface reflection of that. And you can see as we get on out here toward next Monday, look at this. Active weather in the Mississippi River Valley. That again, another system pushes on up into the Great Lakes, another system behind that, and activity back here in the lower plains and mid-Mississippi River Valley. And again, that continues to persist. Again, don't focus on the exact placement of this stuff. When I show you these long-range surface maps, they're not accurate in the exact location of showers and thunderstorms. I'm showing you this to illustrate that we're proceeding back into an active pattern. The GFS generally agrees as well. Looking at the total surface, this is your total precipitation map from the European ensemble mean. You start to get into these light purples, that's 2+ inches. And so the biggest footprint of rain is back here from the southern plains up into the Great Lakes, just west of the Appalachian Mountains. A little bit less as you get to the east, which is, again, that makes sense. We've got a big ridge here that kind of helps the air to rise, or I'm sorry, helps the air to sink. And under sinking, you don't sinking conditions, you don't get a lot of precipitation. And so temperature anomalies, it's going to warm up, and this is a longer range pattern. If we go back, I'm going to roll this back here. So this is day 10. This is a 5-day average. We're looking at day 10. This is day 5 through 10. Much warmer than normal out here in the southeast, particularly, of course, along the east coast. A little bit cooler than normal out west. And then rolling this forward, this is the next 5 days, the next 5 days, the next 5 days, takes us all the way into the end of April. Still a warm pattern in the east, chilly out west. The National Weather Service, the Weather Prediction Center, shows the same thing for their 6 to 10 day forecast. Highest probabilities down here in the southeast, a little chillier out to the west. Greatest temperature or precipitation footprint in the central part of the country. This probably shifts a little bit east over time. And that is what we have there, folks. Now, the last couple of quick things I wanted to just show you here briefly for my North Carolina friends. Again, this is going to be real fast. Precipitation chances. Look at this. That cold front swings in tomorrow, dies out completely almost. You get a little bit of shower activity, some sprinkles here in the mountains down in Georgia and Alabama. Nothing really all that much east of the mountains. Wouldn't rule out a sprinkle, but we're not looking at any rain. Rolling it on out, we're not seeing any rain at all from much of the southeast through the weekend. So going to be a dry pattern. Temperature-wise, we're looking at, you can add a few degrees to this. I think the Europeans underdoing this a little bit. So 80s this afternoon, 60s overnight, into the 50s. We'll get into, let's go roll this back. So tomorrow afternoon, we're looking at highs around 70 in the eastern part of the state of North Carolina, and then back into the western part. We may not get out of the 60s or even 50s back in the mountains or foothills. The cold front comes through. Windy conditions follow tomorrow afternoon. Overnight, Wednesday night, we get down into the 40s for most areas. We'll warm up a little bit, get into the 60s. Wednesday afternoon, look at that. 60s, from Greensboro all the way over to Raleigh to New Bern and down into Wilmington. Maybe could add a little bit closer to 70. Maybe we'll see mid to upper 60s here. 50s in the mountains, and then as we get into Wednesday night, Thursday morning, lows in the 30s in the mountains, 40s, 30s maybe along the Virginia border, 40s as we get into Wednesday early morning for the rest of the state. And then Thursday afternoon start to warm back up again. We're going to get, I think Thursday afternoon is going to be warmer than this. We probably get into the mid 60s Thursday afternoon. This looks kind of like a little bit of a backdoor front that's trying to push in. And then we go on in through Friday night, 40s and 50s for lows. And then Friday, by the time we get into Friday afternoon, we're back up to 80. So 80s are coming back. It's going to be a nice warm weekend. Should be a nice weekend to be out and about as we get into the end of, or as we get as we take a look that far out in advance. But that could change as we get through the week, but I expect, at least with the pattern that's shaping, it'll probably have a nice weekend for the Carolina areas, and the rest of the Southeast too, probably. And that leads us to our Weather IQ answer. And so this is that. We're going to get into that right now. So the question was, what is the name for the global wind belt near the equator with low pressure and calm winds? Doldrums, westerlies, horse latitudes, or trade winds? And the answer is doldrums. You all felt the case of the doldrums? That's when nothing's kind of going on and you just feel kind of, that's what happens at the near the equator. The winds kind of die down. It's calm. There's not a lot of precipitation there. And it's called the doldrums. And if you're sailing, you don't want to get caught in the doldrums because you can't go anywhere. Westerlies are the prevailing winds, generally from between 30 and 60 here. Let's do this. I'll show you something about that. Let me find, this is the one here. Yeah, this little graphic that shows that, and let's see if it's on the page or not. It's not. Let's put it on the page, and then we can scroll up and see it. There we go. That's better. All right. So this is sort of a graphic that illustrates what I'm talking about. So the westerlies are prevailing winds that blow west from the west between 30 and 60 degrees in latitude, and that's up here. You see? Get my little pen here, right in this area here, this pink area. These are the westerlies right there. Okay, there's your westerlies, and they also occur down here in the southern hemisphere also. Horse latitudes are subtropical regions north and south of the equator. Calm winds here again, and little precipitation. So look here, what does that cross over? That crosses over the Sahara Desert, right? So we're not seeing a lot of precipitation. We get desert conditions sometimes here in the 30-degree north latitude area here, but calm winds, little precipitation. And then the trade winds are near the equator. So in the northern hemisphere, these trade winds blow east to west, see? And then, of course, same here in the southern hemisphere too. These are the trades between 0 and 30 degrees. And this is responsible for hurricane production. So hurricane, or tracking at least, hurricane waves come off Africa. You've seen this happen if you followed hurricanes. And then they track across west, from east to west toward the United States. And that's what happens with hurricanes as it relates to trade winds. So trade winds are important when it comes to hurricane tracking. All right, well, that is it for today, folks. Now you know about winds, now you know the weather, and of course, as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you that other weather stations run 24/7. But we've got you covered right here, 4814. So I hope you have a wonderful week ahead and a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you back again tomorrow with another video. Take care.